talking about Victorian nomination criteria first. Just a little bit about me. My name is Navjot Singh Karod. You can call me Navjot, you can call me Nav. I don't really mind it, either way. I think some people are having trouble. Can everyone hear me fine? Just want to make sure before I start. I think Akshdeep can hear me. Prince, maybe you can log out, log in, but for everyone else, I'll get started. Yes, so, yep, I'm a registered migration agent. I am at Aussizz Elizabeth office. I have been in Australia for, I came in Australia in 2009, and I have been in the migration industry for past 5 years. I'm also a part-time law student, studying Bachelor's of Law at the moment. But yes, so there are my contact details. My email ID is navjot.karod, and my contact number is 0452-213-561. And there's an address for you guys, just so if you guys want to pop in. All right. Before I get started, I also want to tell you we have a really attractive giveaway for you guys as well. So what you have to do is you have to tag hashtag Education Summit 2022, hashtag Aussizz Group, and you guys will be, maybe lucky winners will get either 500, 300, 250 gift vouchers. We'll share the link for that one as well. In terms of the Queensland, we will be talking about the Queensland in the next hour. I will be talking about Victoria first. In the meantime, if you guys do have any questions, feel free to put your questions in there. I may not be able to address them at the start, but if I try, I will get them to after as well. And also, yes, can I have everyone to just be on mute, please, just so there's no disturbance? Lan? Okay, all right, I'll put them on the mute. All right, sorry about that. Yes, so in terms of my contact details, I will put my details later on, just in case if you guys missed it, that's no issues. Without any other delay, I want to get started, right? So in terms of Victorian nomination criteria or EOI, basic criteria, I'm sure you guys would be aware of that. You need 65 points, skill assessment, and 6 each. However, for the nomination criteria, it gets more complicated than that. There's a lot of information, so I've just tried to put as much as I could. But of course, if you guys would like your detailed information, of course, you can contact us. We can go from there. So for Victoria, first thing first, you must be living in Victoria. You must be working in Victoria using STEM skills and must be working in a target sector. I will be explaining about STEM skills and target sector later in detail, but just to give you guys an overall picture how it works. Or you, of course, must be living in Victoria, or you could go through a workforce skills pathway. I'll be talking about that in a bit of a detail as well. So what are STEM skills? So of course, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine related qualifications, skills. So a person who is trying to apply for a Victorian nomination for this financial year, I should say previous financial year, they must have had a STEM skills and working target sector. Also, guys, I would like to put a disclaimer as well that whatever I will be talking about, it is from our previous financial year. At the moment, Victoria hasn't opened up or haven't given their criteria yet. It may be the same or it can completely change as well. We will just have to wait and watch. But given how much resources they have put in this structure, I believe it will be a similar process. They may be introducing some other occupations as well, but we will keep you guys updated about that. But for now, I will only be talking about our previous financial year and how our experiences went with that, right? So in terms of our target sectors, of course, they include health, medical research, life science, digital, agri-food, advanced manufacturing, new energy emissions reduction, circular economy, and creative industries. So that was the target sectors. This is workforce skills pathways. So in this pathway, there is hospitality sector, which can be who are eligible for subclass 190 and 491. For 190, you must be living in Victoria, so you could be living anywhere. That's no issues. But for the 491, you definitely need to be living in a regional Victoria. And for the hospitality sector, you must be working as a cook or chef, and then you can apply. In terms of the employment requirements, I will be talking about that in detail as well. So I just want to cover the first in terms of the pathways first, then we'll go into a bit of a detail. Next occupation, which comes in the workforce skills pathway, it's the early childhood teachers. Of course, Victoria government is investing a lot of money in to help in the kindergarten or early childhood teachers. They've also said this is investment will create an additional 6,000 teaching jobs across Victoria. You guys are aware there's a lot of construction going on, even in regional Victoria or even in normal Victoria and metro cities. The more the population, the more the teachers are required, of course, the more the schools, right? So in terms of subclass 190, same thing applies. Living and working in Victoria as an early childhood teacher, of course, you require a relevant skills assessment, but you also need to be registered through Victorian Institute of Teaching, which is a VIT. So once you become an early childhood teacher, you also have to be registered with them for you to be working in Victoria. All right. So in terms of our target sectors, so for target sectors, using your STEM skills, if you're working in these business disciplines, your applications will be highly regarded. So these are called Parkville, Footscray, Dockland. So any sort of these areas, your applications will be put in priority and then they will be looked after. Just want to discuss about the target sector. So the first target sector is about health sector. The health sector is, Victoria constitutes of professional providing medical services. So these occupations could relate to mostly when you think about health sector, you talk about nurses or maybe you think about medical practitioners. However, with the health sector, a software developer working in softwares for hospitals, they're also considered to be working in the health sector, right? So these occupations or these target sectors are not very limited. It really depends on what you do, what your employer does, and how your skills, your STEM skills are helping in that sector. I'll also give you a bit more examples about that as well, but I just want to cover the target sectors first. In terms of the medical research, so medical research conducted in universities, research institutes, which could include drug development, clinical trials, health product manufacturing, they all to be considered in the medical research. With the life science, so life science industries such as medical technology, biotechnology, pharmaceutical industries, they all become part of this life science target sector as well. If you can see an example as well, a lecturer in a biotechnology working in a university is also considered to be working in life science. So for digital sectors, so most of the people who have a IT background would fall under this one. Just to give a bit of detail about that, for subclass 190, you're only eligible for 190 if you are working in the digital focus segment. So the target sector has further focus segments as well, which you need to meet. However, for 491, as long as you're living in a regional area and as long as you're working in any IT occupation, as long as it is your nominated occupation, you would be eligible for that. So digital focus segments would, for subclass 190 in IT sector would be agri-tech, artificial intelligence, education tech, health and med tech, robotics and automation, transport technology. This target sector is not just limited to IT as well. As another example, there a software engineer working in a medical research would be eligible under the medical research pathway. So a software engineer working for hospitals would be in the health sector, so they can apply through it that way. These criterias can be a bit challenging. However, the more detail you get about it, the more understanding you will have. Sometimes you may have applied in a wrong target sector, or you're not sure whether you fit in the target sector. It's best to consult with someone. You have our details, of course. Give us a call. We'll be able to explain the target sectors a bit better, and then we can see whether you would be eligible or not. Victoria has one of the most different criterias at the moment. Most of the other states would not have some sort of target sectors or some sort of a skill pathway. But yes, so that's something which is completely new, and I believe that's why I don't think they will be changing that. They will remain the same as well, and hopefully it continues the same. But we will talk more about that later on. So for agri-food sector would be to develop food growth and production as well as modernization in Victorian agri-food. Just an example there. So your work would be related to research and development or advance in this sector. Sure. Advanced manufacturing would mostly be, they're just given an example, so it could be related to defense or aerospace, but they also talk about that your activities or the work that you're doing or the employer you're working with, their activities could be relating to the research and development, design, supply chain management, via the technology. So that is something that you can look into as well. New energy emission reduction and circular economy. So this is mostly to do with clean energy, renewable energy, bioenergy, carbon capture and energy storage. So people, their qualification or their experience would mostly, or their activities mostly be focusing on reduction of waste, cut pollution and protect the environment. All right, the target sector, the creative industries play an important role, of course. So this target sector is mostly focusing on the screen industry, visual effects, and digital animation. Just a moment. All right, I don't want to bore you with a lot of details as well. So a fun fact about Melbourne. So Melbourne has been ranked the most livable city recently. They look at different categories: stability, healthcare, culture, environment. So yeah, fun fact. So this is the reason that you will be choosing your Melbourne a lot. Just gotta do something. Just bear with me for a moment, guys. Just with the supporting information with subclass 190, of course, you must be living and working in the target sector overall everywhere in Victoria. With the 491, you must be living in a regional Victoria only, and of course, going with the target sector there. All right, so in terms of your employment, so your employment must be related to your nominated occupation. Just an example there, you cannot be working as a personal care assistant and your main nominated occupation is a software developer, right? And in terms of your employment, once you get your initial ROI approved, you will have to show your contract, your recent pay slips, your superannuation documents, and of course, your additional documents such as skill assessment, PTE, and just supporting your information, whatever you mentioned in the EOI and the ROI. At the nomination stage, they will be verifying everything. So make sure your employment is related to your nominated occupation. In terms of your skill assessment, so make sure the skill assessment, your main nominated occupation, it's the same as in your EOI and the ROI. And of course, when applying for your nomination application, you must have at least 4 weeks of validity remaining, because sometimes the processing of it can take about 2 to 3 months. In that sense, you don't want to get an invite and see your skill assessment is not valid anymore. So that's not something we want. So make sure your all documents are valid. Some other supporting information for you guys. So for people in health sector, for example, nurses, for subclass 190, so this list is for 190. These are the specializations that 190 is focusing on at the moment. There, I know the enrolled nurses not there, but enrolled nurses are eligible for the 491 as long as they're working in a aged care in a regional faculty. They should be able to apply for that. Right. So in terms of the nurses, so if you're a registered nurse, make sure you have a skills assessment in one of these specialization. You will be highly preferred. And of course, there are some other occupations there as well: social workers, psychologists, and physiotherapists. So, of course, so how does the nomination process work? So it takes, when you apply for the expression of interest and the registration of interest, it takes about 2 weeks to, once you get your ROI, they give you about 2 weeks to submit all your documents. From there onwards, it takes further 2 to 3 months of their processing time. Sometimes the processing times can be faster as well. For example, if you have a visa which is expiring soon, you can request the department to take your application on priority, and they look at your visa copy, and on that basis they make a decision. The most important thing is that you want to make sure that all your documents are valid. You don't, again, I really want to repeat this. You don't want something that you have applied and it's not coming through. You get a skill assessment and you realize your partner's PT is not valid anymore, or your NATI is not valid anymore. So that's something that, of course, we do not want. As soon as you apply for your EOI, please make sure, or as soon as you have your ROI approval, please make sure your validity of each document, and if there is something which is expiring, make sure you reapply for that. So how does the overall picture work in terms of your initial first step? So for the first thing you do is submitting your EOI. You choose what you want. You choose whether you want 190, 491, you choose your occupation. You put your employment details there, other points such as PT, NATI, qualifications. Then you move on to your ROI. So choosing subclass 190, 491, choosing an occupation, of course, putting your employment details. In terms of your employment details, there are 3 main questions that you have to answer. This ROI part is very crucial. You really want to make sure that whatever you're providing at your best ability. So these 3 questions are very important. On this basis, you will see whether this ROI will be approved or it will not be approved. So the first question is mainly about your duties. So they want to see what sort of duties you're doing. In the duties, they want to make sure whether it is related to your nominated occupation. Second thing is about your employment. So your employer, what what do they do, overall picture, so about your employer. For example, they're a company, a renewable energy company, so you'll be talking about what they do and how you fit into that company. The last thing will be about how your STEM qualifications and how your skills are helping in that particular sector. So this is where you will be talking about, maybe it could be your recent projects or the duties that you're doing, mainly to show that, okay, the skills that you have, you are directly impacting that particular target sector which you are choosing. So these three questions are very important. I really want to put more emphasis on this. On these three questions, you will be picked, and then further you will be applying for your nomination stage. All right, so what if you get your nomination refused? So if your application is refused, you cannot reapply in the same next 6 months. Okay, so this is to prevent the repeat and low quality applications. So people are just not reapplying again and again. So make sure when you're submitting your original ROI, your original registration of interest, it is written in a proper manner so they can look at your application in detail. And once they review it, you move on to your nomination stage. And if your nomination goes through, then you're all good. You apply for your visa. However, if there's anything fishy in your nomination second stage, or maybe you're not eligible for it, you will get your application refused, and then that will have a ban on your application for further 6 months. This is something that you do not want, so you want to really make sure that the first three questions are answered properly. You can, of course, review the nomination decisions as well. So if it's relating to not meeting your eligibility requirements, review options are not there. However, if you believe that there has been an error in your application, then you can, of course, request the Victorian department to review your application. Renomination. So, for example, there has something has happened, and you did not apply for your visa within 60 days, or your EOI was incorrect, or your English or your skill assessment is not valid. Victorian government will not renominate to you under the same ROI or the same nomination application. You will have to start the whole process again. You will have to start the ROI again, and you will have to wait until you're picked, and then you will have to apply for your nomination application again. So, of course, this is something that you do not want. So that's why I want to really put emphasis again. Make sure your EOI is correct. Make sure your ROI is correct, and then you further move on. So some relevant occupations examples. So of course, this is not the list. This is not just a list. So just because I put three occupations there doesn't mean that these are the only three occupations can apply under advanced manufacturing or agri-food. Of course, there could be some other occupations that can fit. But yeah, that's something just to give you guys an example that, okay, maybe these occupations will be the correct fit in there, but it's not limited to. Okay, so if you don't see your occupation, don't get scared. This is just an example for you guys. Health would be medical practitioners, therapists, nurses, life science, again, secondary teachers, food technologists, chemical engineers, medical research, software engineers, biomedical engineers, energy sectors would be electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, or something like that. Again, not limited to, there could be something else. A software engineer could be working in a renewable energy company. Again, developer programmer is there, but you get the idea. This is just an example for you guys. All right, so as I mentioned at the start of my presentation, Victoria has not opened their criteria for this financial year as of yet. So whatever the information that I gave you, it was for the previous financial year. Hopefully it remains the same. Or if it's not, we'll really have to wait and watch. In terms of the criteria, again, that can completely change into a new thing, or they may remain the same and add few things in there, and then we can go from there. More information will be posted sometime this July, so we will be waiting for that. And once they come through, and we will be giving you guys an update about that as well. So just some of the things that I want to point out. So this is for this financial year. As you can see, for Victoria at the moment, there were about 3,500 seats allocated to 190, and there were about 750 seats allocated to 491. And in total, all the seats, there were about 15,000 seats for subclass 190 for all over Australia. And for 491, there are about 14,000. I just want to put that in a comparison about what's really happening this financial year and what was happening last financial year, just to help you guys understand what could be your possible, pathways and where you can go pretty much. So I will not be talking about employer sponsorship in detail. I'll mainly be just focusing on the state territory nominated criteria. So you can see 2021 to 2022, there were about 11,200 seats available. And 2022 to 2023, there are about 20,000 seats allocation. So we will see that there will be some seat allocation which will be increased for all the states. Hopefully all the states will have a bit of a higher seat allocation to them. Other thing I want to point out is your skilled independent seats allocation as well. Previous financial year, there were about 6,500 seats. And this financial year, or this upcoming financial year, which has already started, there are about 16,000 seats available for the 189 as well. So what that basically means in practical terms, for people who would have higher points for 189, they will be getting picked from there because, of course, there's a higher seat allocation there. It's all over Australia as well, so it's not particularly tied into any state. Once the seats are being picked for 189, it will make it much easier for the 190 or the regional visas to be picked as well. So the less the competition in the 190, 491, the better it is for you guys. So at the moment, I've been getting a lot of questions in terms of where to move. I would not suggest in terms of moving anything as of yet. Wait for the criteria. You may be eligible for this as well. And the other thing I want to really point out as well, this financial year for Victoria, there was no minimum employment requirement as well. You will see from my slides, there wasn't any minimum working hours limitations or anything. Basically means you just need to be showing that you're currently working, right? So it could be part-time, of course, can be full-time, and of course, it can be casual employment as well, right? So I hope I didn't take too long. Of course, you can leave us a review how your session went. And I really thank you guys for joining me with the whole presentation. And I know it took a bit of a while, but that's okay. We made it. I would, of course, take your questions as well, and then my contact details as well for you guys to just get in contact with me. If you would like to get your, know your eligibility a bit better, I'll be able to give you much more detail there. At the moment, I can only give you some general information. I do not, I cannot really understand the whole scenario just with one question, but I'll try my best. So we've got about 15 minutes until our next session. So I'll just try to wrap up. Of course, if I miss anything, I'll get back to you guys after as well. And of course, you have my contact details. You can go from there. So, all right, let's get started with the questions. Which state is considered as a promising one from a lawyer from India to get relocated to Australia? Right. Very vague question. I'm sorry, I won't be able to answer that really quickly. At the moment, most of the states are not open yet, even with Victoria. Because I'm talking about Victoria, Victoria doesn't have solicitor occupation in the STEM qualification or in the, of course, the target sector. So for Victoria, at the moment, you will not be able to, but for overall subclass 189, you may be. However, I just want to point out, if you're a lawyer from India, whichever state you're living in, you will have to be admitted there as well. So first thing, you need to figure out whether the qualification that you have, whether you have the required subjects to be admitted in Australia as a lawyer. All right. Next question is about Queensland. So I'm just gonna leave that one for Malay once he starts. Okay. Akshdeep Singh, currently living in New South Wales. Is it worth for me to stay in New South Wales for 491? Which otherwise makes total. And here, or should I move to another state? If it is, can you recommend any other state? Would be really appreciated. Okay, actually, this question is more about New South Wales. Of course, there was just a session about New South Wales. I highly recommend you to go on YouTube. We will put a link there below. Join. Of course, you're not gonna be able to join, but yeah, join. Go on the video link. Listen through the session. If it helps, of course, you can give us a call directly. In terms of moving to a New South Wales or moving into another state, I'm only going to talk about Victoria. With Victoria, you will need to be currently working in your occupation. Okay. So if you're not working in your occupation, you will not be eligible for Victorian particularly. All right. Next question. Okay, so I've got a question from Godwin. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right. How many points for 190 for registered nurse, aged care? So really depends. Minimum were 80, 85. I believe there was a recent round as well. Occupations were picked at 70, 75 as well. Really depends in your aged care. So when you're talking about nurses occupations, they also prefer if you're working directly with your aged care provider or hospitals as well. So in terms of the points, if you have 70, 75, you should be all good. Prince, currently living in Victoria, Master's Mechanical, 80 points. Can you please advise? Also thinking of New South Wales. You have part-time work rights. Can you please advise based on this? Yes, so Prince Gerg, if you have only part-time rights, that's okay. In Victoria, as I mentioned, Victoria doesn't have any limitations on your work rights. As long as you're working, could be even a casual employment, could be just part-time as well, you will be eligible. As long as you're working in your occupation, you will be eligible for that. But of course, you want to make sure that whatever work that you're doing, it's also in the target sector as well. Das has asked, is early childhood falls under a target sector? No, so early childhood comes under a separate category, which is a workforce pathway. So for early childhood teachers, if they're eligible, they also need to be registered through VIT. Once you have the skill assessment, once you have the registration, you can apply through the workplace pathway, and you will be going from there. Agri-food is a agriculture sector. Yes, so anything related to agri-food, anything related to production, manufacturing, that will all come under there. If you want a bit more information on that, you can contact me. We can discuss whether your employment comes under that or what does it come under. I'm happy to help you with that. What are the requirements for early childhood teacher skill assessment? Sandeep, again, skill assessment, you must have, of course, your 6 each. The higher, the better. I would say about 80, 85 points would be an ideal registration with VIT, and must be currently working as well. Okay, so as long as you're doing that, you should be all good. My company supports medical centers. Does it come under target sector? Well, I work as an analyst programmer. Adi, okay, so your work company supports medical centers. So yes, this might be something for you. Again, we will just have to provide a bit of clear details about how your company is supporting the medical center and how your skills and expertise are helping as an analyst programmer in that particular sector. So I believe you should be okay to apply, but of course, I want to make sure that I know the whole criteria. I mean, I know about your company, I know about you properly before going ahead. But from the looks of it, you looks all good. Son bachelor's in mechanical engineering and master's in renewable sustainable engineering. Currently working on solar run. What are my chances for PR? What are the ways? Okay, for renewable energy, I believe the recent invites were done a few months ago. I believe the minimum points for engineering technologies. See, I'm not sure whether you have a skill assessment as a mechanical engineer or whether it is related to engineering technologist. But if you're working in the renewable energy, you'll be applying in the energy renewable sector, and minimum points, I would say 80 points yourself, state another state 5 points should be okay. But of course, get in touch and we will go from there. Moyes is asking about COVID visa, where there is no further say. COVID is granted. There are too many speculations in the market. Okay. Moyes, I'm not gonna answer this question in particular because it's not relating to Victorian. I have very limited time. I know you also have a question about Queensland 190. So just make sure, just stay with us. Malay will be joining us with the Queensland options. But in terms of your 408, you can directly get in contact with me. I'll put my number there. I'll explain you the criteria in detail. I'll explain you about the condition as well. Okay. All right. Deepankar saying, could you tell enrollers migration pathway any scope in regional Queensland? Okay, I'm gonna leave the Queensland part to Malay. We will go from there. What are the chances to get 190 on 90 points in NFC? All right, I'm not able to understand. Malay, do you want to take that question if you're free? But that's okay. All right. How much points required for 190 in registered nurse aged care? I believe 75, 85, 80 points should be more than sufficient. Just make sure you have everything valid. What are the chances to get 491 for early childhood teachers with 85 points? I believe your chances are really good, Das. Just make sure that you're also registered with VIT. Urvesh Patel, yes, in terms of the accountants, yes, it wasn't a great year for accountants. I will also say it wasn't a great year for other trade occupations as well. So hopefully in the upcoming financial year, they will come up with a new criteria or maybe help you guys. But we'll just have to wait and watch for that one. Could you please tell me about secondary teaching in Victoria? Tell me. Hi, Anna. With the secondary teaching, it wasn't in the workforce pathway at the moment, so we'll have to wait in this upcoming financial year. You may be eligible to apply 189. However, you will not be coming under the STEM qualification. Maybe you will be coming under the one of a target sector, but yes, we can get in touch regarding this as well. Um, Deepankar, I see your question again. So in terms of an enrolled nurse for Victoria, it is eligible if you're working in the aged care in a regional center. So you must be working in the aged care facility in a regional Victoria. So we have got a positive outcome for enrolled nurses in Victoria, but only for 491. Vedic, what about Victoria for chef? So yes, chef is a really good occupation as well. Of course, comes under a workforce pathway. And yes, you can apply minimum points. You will need about 65, 70 for 190. Of course, the higher the better. Um, there are few other questions, but I'm happy to take that later on. I will ask Malay to take over if he's ready, and we can go from there. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your questions. Of course, if you have anything that you guys want to discuss, you guys can contact me directly or call Aussizz. We'll be more than happy to help you. We put our all links there, and then yes, um, we'll be we'll be happier to help you as much as we can. Or if Malay is not ready, I'll keep answering questions since I'm still here. Where was I? What are the chances? Okay, I'm just gonna pick from here. How long is the RY valid for? Should we submit a new RY for this financial year if you weren't invited previously? How long is the EOI valid for? So the EOI, you can leave the EOI for now. You can leave the RY for now. There's no update yet whether you need to reapply. Let's see what the next financial year comes. I believe if you haven't got any email in terms of your eligibility, whether you're eligible or whether you're not eligible, yes, you can go from there. I'll let Malay take over now. I'll leave the questions for later.
Hello everyone, this is Malay here from Aussizz Group. I'm a registered migration agent and I'm going to cover about the Queensland state nomination criteria. Thank you Naujat for your informative session regarding the Victorian nomination and it was very helpful for the applicants who are going to plan their nominations to be applied next financial year. So we are going to cover up regarding the Queensland state nomination for this particular session. And in this one, I'm going to start with the quota for the last financial year and with the current financial year. So far they haven't published the quota, but if you see the graph, it has been increased since last 5 to 7 years. Quota has been significantly increased in the Queensland state nomination, particularly in last 2 financial year where the COVID was there. Still Queensland has increased the quota and now department has increased the quota, so there is a likely good chances to increase the quota up to 3000 for this financial year. It can be like 1500 for the 190 subclass and 1500 for the subclass 491, so where the applicants can have a good chance to get the state nomination invite faster compared to the last financial year, because we have seen so many clients who are applying in last couple of years, they miss the state nomination opportunity because subclass 189 has not been invited since last couple of years. So many people are moved from 189 to subclass 190 and subclass 491, where they were trying to get an invite, but the applicants has to have a higher points to get a state nomination invite. So this year we are hoping to get some more quotas, and it likely to be like 1500 and 1500 for subclass 190 and subclass 4. So I'm going to discuss about the Queensland state nomination criteria related to, like, it was some criteria which was updated in last financial year. It likely to be same for this financial year, but there are some changes can be happen. But we haven't got any update related to the Queensland state nomination yet. So this topic I'm going to cover based on the last financial year, but it will be relevantly same for the current financial year as well. Like the last financial year, the quota for 190 subclass was 1250 and subclass 491 was 1000 including the SBO as well. So small business is a category of the part of the 491 visa, and a lot of people are trying to move from different states or even accountant applicants who are struggling to get the invites for subclass 190, 189, they are moving towards this 491 SBO category. So last year, the Queensland has divided the quota into the particular occupations, like all these occupations you can see on the screens, like the accountant, finance manager, civil engineer, software, IT occupations, quantity surveyor, registered nurses, and the trade occupations. They have allocated the separate quotas for each occupations, and each occupation got like 50 quotas or 30 quotas or number of the quota depending on the total quota as well. So let's take an example for the accountant general. Out of 1250 quota for subclass 190, they got only 50 quota. So only they will get an invite up to 50 applicants. If the Queensland find 50 applicants with more than 95 or 100 points, the other applicants will not get an invite. So that was happened last year because the PMSL occupation has like almost 45 to 50 occupations in the list, and department cannot give invite to the particular occupation. So they have allocated a quota to the occupation which is in high demand and they get most of the EOIs. So they have divided the number of quota. So other occupations can get a chance to get an invite as well for the current financial year. If we take an example of the civil engineer, mechanical, or the other engineers, they have allocated 50 quota as well, same like the accountants, same with the IT occupations like the software engineer, programmer, which is the unit group of 2613, business analyst, and the other system analyst and the software application programmers as well. They have only 50 quota. Same goes for the registered nurses as well. All the nurses category have only 50 quota, and the quantity surveyor and the trade occupations like the motor mechanic and cook got almost 30 quotas. If we look at the detailed scenario about the Queensland state nomination category, there are mainly three categories. One is the working in Queensland, second will be graduate of Queensland, and third will be the small business owner. So I am going to cover up regarding the main all of the category, but mainly focusing on working in Queensland and small business owner, where most of the applicants are eligible and they can apply and they can try to make their options for these particular categories. So if we look at the category, this is the basic requirement I'm going to cover. It can, like, if your case is different, you may have to meet another additional requirements as well. So if we look at the subclass 190 requirement for the working category, applicant needs to have minimum 80 points to be eligible to apply for the subclass 190. That's the minimum criteria for the Queensland. So they have introduced this criteria since last year only. It used to be 65 points only, but now they got so many applicants by every year. So they have increased the number of point criteria, and they have filtered the many applicants who are applying with less points. They may not get the priority. Even if you have minimum 80 points, still you need to meet the other requirement, which is higher points criteria. So as I was mentioning in the last slides, as every occupation has a 50 quota, so most of the applicants who are having 95, 100 points, they will get a first priority. Someone who is having the 80 points or 75 plus 5 points, they will be under the less priority, because if they find the more applicants with the higher points, you may not get an invite as well. So that's the criteria, which is 80 points, and you need to have a higher points to get an invite for the subclass 190. The second main criteria about the Queensland state nomination is you need to work in your nominated occupation or a closely relevant occupation for at least 6 months before you apply for the EOI. So while you are planning to apply for the EOI, whenever they are opening in next upcoming month, you need to provide the 6 months of full-time job in your closely or relevant nominated occupation. Additionally, you need to provide 12 months of contract as well from the day you started working with the employer. So we get many clients who are saying, okay, I don't have the visa for next 12 months. How can I get a contract for next 12 months? That is not really required. You need to have an ongoing 12 months of full-time contract, which is a requirement for the Queensland. Additional criteria is you need to have 7 bands in English, like IELTS or PTE, mandatory to apply for the subclass 190. There is some exceptional cases where the Queensland has invited the applicants who are not having a 7 as well in particular trade occupations, or we have seen an invite in the health occupations as well. without 7 each they have invited, but it's only for the limited applicants, not for the everyone. So the criteria for 7 each is mandatory as well, you can say. Last criteria is you need to have a physical office in Queensland anywhere to apply for subclass 190. If your office is located in other state, you're working from home in Queensland, or your work location is overseas and you're working for the Queensland from the work from home, that won't be considered. You need to have physical location in anywhere in Queensland to apply for subclass 190. If we move forward for subclass 19491, it is a bit relaxing for subclass 491 because department wants many people to go into regional area and grow the regional state migration at the moment. So for 491, 80 point is not a criteria. The department criteria has 65 points. If you meet the minimum points, you will be eligible for subclass 491. Second criteria is you need to have minimum 3 months of full-time job before you apply for the state nomination in your nominated occupation or closely related occupation. Additionally, you need to have a contract letter, similarly like 190 visa, as well as you need to have a physical work location in Queensland regional area. That is the mandatory part. Some of the applicants we are getting, like they got an head office in Brisbane or head office in other state like Victoria or NSW, but they got the remote locations and they got the remote offices in somewhere in Queensland regional area. They will be eligible as well for subclass 491. Same like 190, you need to have 7H to be eligible for subclass 491 as well. So 7H is the mandatory requirement for subclass 190 and 491 for the professional occupation. Only trade occupations or some health occupations are getting the invites without the 7H as well. If we move forward to the next graduate category, it's not for everyone. Like if you are an interested graduate or if you are living in other state and if you want to apply for the graduate category, you guys are not eligible. It is only for the Queensland graduate. So they are a bit flexible with the Queensland graduate category, where you need to have qualification in Queensland University and completed 100% of course into Queensland University itself. So if you have started your course in Victoria, NSW or Western Australia or South Australia, in second semester if you have moved to Queensland, you won't be eligible to apply in this category, and this category is only for the 491 graduates, for 491 visa only. Second criteria for the graduate category is you need to have 6 GPA or higher to be eligible for applying into the graduate category, as well as you need to have proficient English, which means 7 each in IELTS or PTE, as well as you need to meet the 3 months of requirement and working experience requirement, and at least 20 hours a week is the requirement of the job. Now, in the working category, the requirement was only 35 hours a week, which was mandatory. But this is a benefit for the Queensland graduate who has completed the studies in last 2 years. Even though they are working part-time, it will be they are eligible to apply for the subclass 491 visa with only 20 hours per week. That means even though let's suppose you have completed your 485 visa, you gone back, like you went back on your student visas and you are working 20 hours, you are still eligible to apply for the Queensland graduate category. And you need to have a further 20 hours per week job offer letter for next 12 months. That's the requirement for the subclass 491 with the masters or and bachelor's graduate category. If we go and look at the PhD graduates, it's very flexible requirement, like very easy requirement for subclass 190 and 491. They need to have a skill assessment positive and they have an occupation into the any STSL or MLTSSL, even R1 list for subclass 491. They have to finish 100% of their course in Queensland University and they have been studied in Queensland in last 2 years only. The main thing is about the PhD graduate, they don't need to have a job or ongoing job requirement for getting the state nomination invite. As long as they are having an 80 points and they have the skill assessment positive, they are likely to be eligible to get an invite with subclass 190. And for 491, there is no any points requirement. With the skill assessment and 65 points, they will straight away get the state nomination. So this is about the graduate category, which is only falls for the Queensland graduate. So if you are a graduate from other states, you will not be eligible to apply for this category. Last category we are discussing, it's very high demand at the moment, which is small business category. We are getting the multiple inquiries from the different states, and the applicants who are not getting the invite for their particular occupations, like someone having an accounting degree or someone has studied the course which is not in the PR list, they are finding the options for the business in Queensland and how to get a PR with the business category. So for them, this is the best options. If you are not having a higher points, if you have a positive skill assessment, if you are not able to find a job in a particular stream or nominated occupations, business stream is for you. So for the business stream, with the current requirement, you need to have a 100% owner of the business and not a partnership business. So you have to find a business where you can have a 100% ownership. You don't need to get anyone else into the joint venture or partnership to start up or even buying the existing business. You need to have a positive skill assessment. That's even common requirement for this business category as well. As long as you have an assessment, you are eligible to apply for the business category. Second thing is you need to run the business for at least 6 months prior you apply for this SBO stream. So there are two categories. One is the buying the existing business which is 2 years of old, or having the business by your own and run that for next 2 years and you are eligible after 2 years. So there are two categories. One is the existing business, one is the startup business. So if we differentiate the category, for the existing business, you need to buy the business for minimum 100K and it needs to be 2 years of old. Doesn't matter how many people has run that business. If there are two different owners in last 2 years, still you are eligible to apply to buy the business. And once you run for next 6 months, like you operating the business for next 6 months, that makes you eligible to apply for Subclass 491 visa in Queensland. You need to have at least one employee who is Australian PR or citizen and who is working at least 20 hours a week. Even you can have two employees who are working 10 hours each, and that makes eligible as well to apply for the SBO visa. You need to have sufficient funds to settle in Queensland. Additionally, if you are going for the startup business, that's another good category, like the applicant who has completed the studies recently, they are getting 3 years of visa with the master's qualification for 485. So almost you got 3 years of time to settle down in Australia. By the time if you start your own business in Queensland regional area, after moving to another state or by living in Queensland or Queensland graduate itself, you will be eligible after 2 years of operation of the business. So you need to run continuously for next 2 years your own business, and your second year of turnover for the business is minimum 200K, which is 2 lakhs dollar, 8 Australian dollar for a year. So if your second year profit is 200K, not profit, sorry, if it is 200K turnover for the second year, you are eligible to apply for Subclass 491. Now many applicants are coming here and they are asking for the query, what if we start the business or if we apply after 2 years and the criteria will be changed? You are still eligible to apply if the criteria is changes once you start the business. If you haven't started the business yet, or if you haven't started the 2 years of time and they change the criteria, you have to meet the new criteria. But if you have started your business, if it is 1 year of business has been finished and you are applying after another year, between that time if the criteria change, you are still eligible to apply for the startup business for 491 visa after 2 years, because you are coming under the old requirement. So do not worry about the changing of the criteria. As long as you started the business with the current financial year or with the current criteria, you will be eligible even after 2 years. So this is all about the Queensland migration. There are certain things which we have to discuss about the what are the things you need to take care for the state nomination while you apply for the Queensland state nomination. So most of the applicants who are eagerly waiting for this state nomination program to be open for this financial year, we got an update from the Queensland that they are going to open the state nomination program within next couple of months. They are in the process of getting some criteria to be revised or getting the additional quota, and they are going to publish the criteria soon on their website. So please wait for the criteria to be announced and to apply for the EOI. Now, if you have lodged the EOI last year, which is not going to be valid, every year you have to lodge a fresh EOI while they open for the new program. So if you are eligible, you can get in touch with us. We can help you for lodging a EOI or getting the state nomination done. But do not lodge the multiple EOI. We're getting so many clients, they're lodging the multiple EOIs, which is not right for the Queensland. Queensland has strictly mentioned lodge only one EOI for the occupation. If you are lodging it, like we get so many clients, like let me give you the example, like you got an occupation in business analyst, actually you got a skill assessment as a software engineer. If you're lodging the two EOIs with the two different occupations, that can create an issue, and that one of the EOI can be cancelled from the Queensland nomination. So if you are lodging two EOIs, they may not valid, like your EOI cannot be valid, and they can close your EOI before even they look into the EOI. So lodge only one EOI at the time, and lodge the EOI where you can get maximum chance to get an invite from the state nomination. If you have any questions regarding the Queensland nomination or the criteria for the individual occupations, you can contact me on the malai.kamal@aussizzgroup.com. I will be available at Mount Road branch, and you can call us on 0731669984. Now I'm going to cover some of the questions. Just bear with me. So the first question is, when do the state nomination open for the Queensland this year? As I mentioned into my seminar, like Queensland hasn't announced any date yet, but they are going to start the program soon, by maybe end of this month or maybe start of early next month. You will get an update from the Queensland website, so keep an eye on the Queensland website, or you can follow us on Facebook. We usually keep all the updates on our Facebook as well. Second question from the Vika Anna is secondary teaching in Victoria. I think Navjot has covered that part. I'm going to cover for the Akriti. Is it good to move regional now for IT student? If yes, where? Definitely it's good to move to the regional area where you can get additional 5 points for the getting the PR, as well as you can move to any of the regional area in Australia that can give you additional 485 visa as well. Another question from the Chani, like I didn't get an invite for the software engineer for 95 points in Queensland. Any chance for 90 points this year? Definitely, Chandni, there is a very good chance to receive an invite with 90 points, including the state nomination. As last year the quota was 1000, now the quota is going to increase for the current financial year, as well as the 2613 is in the demand list, which is the software engineer. But we recommend do not lodge the multiple EOI, lodge only one EOI at the start of the program, so you may receive an invite soon. So many clients with the 85 points got an invite last financial year, so there is a very high chance to get an invite in your case with the 90 points as well. Marie has asked the question, can we lodge an EOI for both 190 and 491? Marie, yes, you can lodge an EOI for both 190 and 491. Lodge a single EOI with the two subclass, and there is a good chance to get an invite in one of the subclass depending on number of points you have. Nirav has asked a question, what are the chances to get a 491 family sponsor visa on 100 points? Nirav, this session is for the state nomination, but yes, I can answer your question with the 491 family sponsor. It's good news, they are going to invite 4,000 applicants for the every quarter for 189 and 491. So there is a good chance to get an invite for you into family stream with 100 points with 85 and 15. Last year they have only invited health occupations, but this year they can start with the IT occupations as well. But yeah, look for the backup option. Don't rely only on the family sponsor with 100 points. Mansi has asked a question regarding the 491 SPO Queensland. 65 points is enough. Yes, Mansi, 65 points is enough for Subclass 491. For business, just need to be run for next 6 months. You will be eligible to apply for the EOI and you will receive an invite. There is no any minimum points for the business stream. VC has asked the question. I live in the Queensland but working from home for New South Wales company in ICT field. Can I apply one of the visas or must be working in Queensland? We see I have mentioned into the like during the slides that your company needs to be in Queensland as well to eligible to apply for the state nomination. Even though your company has the head branch like the head location in NSW, but they need to have a remote location or the physical location in Queensland at least to be eligible for the Queensland state nomination. Regarding the Dipankar, could you tell enroll nurse migration pathway across all the states is seeing only registered nurse and not any EN? Dipankar, I can say Queensland has very good chance to getting invite with the enroll nurse. We have seen so many clients who got an invite last financial year. Depending on the number of points, if you have more than 80 points, definitely you will get an invite for Subclass 190 by working 6 months in Queensland. And for this 491, if you have 3 months of experience in regional Queensland, you will get an invite as well with 65 points. Godwin has asked the question, what is the points needed for the offshore IT skill assessed in programmer? Godwin, for the offshore, Queensland has not opened the program yet. There is a chance they may open it for this financial year. So wait for some more updates for the current financial year. Right now, only South Australia and New South Wales is the only state who are open for the offshore, but rest of the state hasn't opened yet. Some other question from the Nikhil, that any chances for management consultant for this financial for Queensland or 190? Nikhil, yes, very good chance with the management consultant as long as you have more than 80 points. There are not many applicants who are having this particular outcome into the skill assessment. So yes, very high chance to receive an invite and there is no any quota allocation for the management consultant. So yes, you may receive an invite. For 189, it depends on the number of quota they are getting. Like department has mentioned 16,000 they are going to invite for this financial year, but they haven't mentioned like they are only inviting health occupation or IT occupations. If they will start inviting all the occupations for 189, yes, there is a good chance for the 189 as well, but depending on the points, it needs to be more than 85 or 90 to receive an invite. Region has asked the question, if I move to regional Queensland after my study, do I still get 5 points? No, region, you need to have qualification in regional area in Australia for 2 years to get 5 extra points. You won't be able to get 5 points by staying in regional area. You need to study in regional area to get an additional points. Jatinder has asked any chances of computer and system engineer for Victoria or Queensland with 70 points for 491. Jitender, yes, there is a very good chance for subclass 1491 with 70 points, but you need to have 7 each in English and 3 months of experience in Queensland to be getting the invite for this Queensland state nomination. So try to look for the job in a particular stream or the relevant stream. You may receive an invite. So another question from the Moise is, what about the COVID visa? I have heard there is no further stay if COVID visa is granted. There are too many restrictions in the market. Moise, there is no any criteria regarding the no further stay into the COVID visa as long as you are working into the any sector mentioned by the department. So as long as you're working and if you're applying for the core visa, you will get full-time work rights, and depending on the priority sector or non-priority sectors, you will receive up to 6 months or 12 months of visa. But if you are applying for the core visa after the visitor visa or without job, there is a chance of getting the no further stay condition on your visa. There is another question from the Patrick. If I have an overseas accounting degree and 6 months of Queensland accounting experience, can I apply for Subclass 190? Yes, you can apply for the Subclass 190 as long as you're working in Queensland for 6 months in accounting firm. That's the particular requirement for the Queensland state nomination, that you need to have a job in accounting firm, as well as you need to enroll into the CPA course, which will allow you to apply for this state nomination. And if you have more than 80 points, I recommend for the accountants definitely more than 95 or 100 points to receive an outcome. With 80 points, you are eligible to apply, but higher points will get you the outcome faster. Sandeep Kumar is asking minimum points for subclass 189 this financial year. Sandeep, definitely 65 is the minimum points to apply and to be eligible to apply for the UI, but higher points will get your outcome soon. Moise is asking whether 90 points is enough for the 190. Moise, depending on your occupation, whether you have an occupation in IT or engineering, 90 points is enough. If you have an accounting background, you need to have some more points. Mary is asking, do I have a higher chance to get invited for 491 RN with 85 points in Queensland? Definitely, yes, very good chance, high chance for 491 with 85 points. All the nurses are getting invited last financial year, so you should apply as soon as you've got 3 years, 3 months of experience in the nominated field in regional Queensland and ready with your application. They are going to open soon for next month or by end of this month. Mansi has asked the question, can I show the monthly drawings as a part of main applicant salary or need to pay with payslip as a monthly main applicant? Mansi is recommended to get the payslip for the main applicant, or else even if you have monthly drawing, it will be fine as you can take as a director fees. It won't be an issue, but you have to have one Australian citizen or PR staff who is working 20 hours per week in a particular firm. That's the main requirement.
Thanks, Malay. I'll quickly have a glance. I'm not sure whether I missed anything. Happy to take any questions for Victoria if anyone's still here, but I'll just scroll over and see if there's anything.
Let me take one of the questions which we got last one by the time.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Take like for the experience, there is no need to be having an experience from the accounting company itself. You can count the experience even though you're working in as an accountant in any other firm. But as per the Queensland requirement to getting the state nomination, you need to have an experience from an accounting company itself. Another question from the Yuvraj is electronics engineer with 75 points for 491 state and family sponsorship. When Yuvraj, where you are working at the moment, your job is in critical sector or no, Queensland is looking at the moment like your job should be in priority sector to getting the invite. So occupation only doesn't really matter to get an invite. Your particular job role and the duties and company background or the role is important as well to get an invite, but 491 with 75 points, still good chance to get an invite. Nojot, over to you.
Yeah, sorry, Malay. Yeah, sorry. Is there a question for me? I really can't find any questions. I believe I did answer most of them. If there's anyone remaining and they want to ask anything about Victoria, I'm happy to take any questions. I think they were mostly answered, Malay, for Victoria.
All good then, guys. Thank you very much for being with us. You can have my details. Any other questions, you can contact us on nearest office. If you have any questions regarding Victoria state nomination, you can contact Navjot. If you have any questions regarding Queensland state nomination, you can contact me. I am located in Brisbane. Navjot is located in Victoria. So any questions, feel free to send an email or contact us in given numbers. We will be in touch with you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Yes. Stay in touch and we'll be able to answer our questions. Don't forget to join our next sessions and make sure you leave us a good review as well. Thank you.